The sun was just beginning to rise over the military base, casting a warm glow on the rows of identical buildings. The morning air was crisp, filled with the sounds of drills and the distant hum of trucks preparing for the day ahead. It was a typical day for many soldiers, but for one female officer, it was about to become anything but ordinary. She pulled up in her military vehicle, her heart racing with excitement and determination. This wasn't just another day at work for her. She was proud to serve as a Navy SEAL, a title she had fought hard to earn. With years of rigorous training behind her, she felt ready to take on any challenge that lay ahead. Today, however, would test not only her skills but also her perseverance in facing the obstacles that still existed in a traditionally male-dominated field. As she approached the entrance of the base, she could see the Marine on guard duty standing tall and vigilant. He looked imposing in his uniform, arms crossed firmly over his chest. A quick glance at his expression told her everything she needed to know. He was serious about his job and clearly ready to enforce every rule without exception. Was this the moment when stereotypes would clash? "Good morning," she called out as she approached him confidently, hoping her cheerful tone would ease any tension in the air. The Marine raised an eyebrow, sizing her up as if trying to gauge her presence. She felt a chill run down her spine, but she was used to such scrutiny and wouldn't back down now. "ID?" he replied curtly, his tone making it clear that he expected compliance without question. She handed him her identification with a steady hand, trying to disguise the unease creeping into her thoughts. The Marine studied it closely before looking back at her, skepticism etched on his face. "You're not authorized to enter this base," he said flatly, dismissing her with a wave of his hand that felt both disheartening and infuriating. For a moment, time stood still. The officer's heart sank as she processed his words. "I am authorized," she insisted firmly, emboldened by years of training and service that had prepared her for moments like this. Yet she could see that he wasn't convinced. There was something more than protocol at play here, something personal. She sensed his doubt stemmed not from procedure, but from deeply rooted beliefs about women in combat roles. With each second that passed, frustration bubbled up inside her. She had faced tougher opponents than this Marine before. All she needed was an opportunity to show him who she truly was, a Navy SEAL dedicated to duty and honor, if only he would let her pass. The female officer stood tall beside her military vehicle, taking a moment to gather her thoughts before facing the Marine. Her name was Lieutenant Jamie Thompson, and she had earned every bit of respect she carried with her. Growing up, Jamie had always been determined and adventurous. As a young girl, she was captivated by stories of bravery and heroism, dreaming of one day serving her country. After graduating high school with honors, she enlisted in the Navy. The journey was not easy. She faced grueling physical challenges and mental trials during her training. Many doubted her ability to succeed, often telling her that women couldn't handle the rigors of this demanding career path. But Jamie thrived under pressure. She endured every obstacle, from long runs through harsh terrains to navigating intense combat scenarios. Her relentless spirit and unwavering dedication helped her rise through the ranks. Years later, Lieutenant Thompson proudly became a Navy SEAL, the elite force that only a few could achieve. She had completed countless missions, earning accolades for her bravery and tactical excellence in high-pressure situations. Jamie's resilience set her apart. She had faced life-or-death challenges and stood tall amongst her peers, proving that gender did not determine capability. As she approached the entrance gate of the military base that morning, Jamie's confidence radiated from within. Though aware of the biases she might encounter as a woman in such a male-dominated field, she chose to focus on her strengths instead of letting negativity hold her back. With each step toward the guard post, memories of her rigorous training flooded back. Every sweat-soaked workout and late-night study session reminded her of how hard she fought to be there. Being a Navy SEAL wasn't just about physical strength. It was also about teamwork and trust. Her fellow SEALs depended on each other for support in the toughest circumstances, and they quickly recognized Jamie's talents as an invaluable asset to their unit. They saw beyond any preconceived notions about gender roles in combat, something that encouraged Jamie even more as she pushed herself to excel. But standing before the Marine now, all those achievements felt distant as doubt crept in. Would he see who she truly was? Would he recognize her hard work and determination? The thought weighed heavily on her mind, but Jamie knew deep down that she must stay strong, not just for herself, but for all women who aspired to break barriers in the military. She took a deep breath and prepared herself for what lay ahead, ready to prove that nothing could stand in her way, not even this skeptical Marine guard. As Jamie approached the entrance gate, she squared her shoulders and lifted her chin, projecting an air of confidence despite the uncertainty swirling inside her. The Marine guard stood at his post, a tall figure in crisp uniform looking every bit as formidable as she had anticipated. His arms were crossed tightly over his chest, and his gaze was unwavering as he eyed her with a mixture of curiosity and skepticism. "Good morning," Jamie greeted him brightly, her voice steady. She hoped to break the ice with a friendly tone, but he merely raised an eyebrow, unimpressed. The tension between them hung, thick in the air. She felt the weight of his scrutiny, as if he were judging her worthiness based solely on her gender rather than her accomplishments. "ID," he commanded, his tone leaving no room for pleasantries. Jamie felt a slight sting at his brusque demeanor, but quickly masked it with determination. She pulled out her identification and handed it to him, maintaining eye contact to show that she was not intimidated. The Marine took a moment to examine the card. A brief silence stretched between them, and Jamie could feel her heart racing. She thought about all the hard work she had put into becoming a SEAL, every grueling workout, each moment of self-doubt she had conquered. She reminded herself that she was there for a reason, and that she belonged just as much as any other service member. After what felt like an eternity, the Marine looked up from the ID, his expression still skeptical. "You're not authorized to enter this base," he stated flatly, dismissing her with a wave of his hand. The words struck Jamie like a blow. She fought against the rising tide of frustration threatening to overwhelm her. How could he judge her so quickly? "I am authorized," she replied firmly, raising her voice slightly to convey the importance of what she was saying. "I'm Lieutenant Jamie Thompson, and I'm here on official business." He narrowed his eyes at her, clearly unconvinced. In that moment, Jamie felt vulnerable yet resolute. This was not just a test of access, but an opportunity to challenge stereotypes head-on. She knew she had earned her status through blood, sweat, and tears. This Marine needed to see past his biases. "Look at my badge," she urged, tapping it lightly with her finger. "I may be a woman in a male-dominated field, but I have earned my place among you." For a fleeting second, Jamie wondered if this moment would change anything for him, or if he would remain steadfast in his beliefs. But as she stood there, her determination shining through, she felt ready to face whatever came next, prepared to prove that barriers could be broken with courage and conviction. The Marine Guard stood firm, arms crossed tightly over his chest, his posture signaling a no-nonsense approach to security. As Jamie boldly declared her identity and authority, he seemed unimpressed by her words. His skeptical gaze lingered on her, clearly unconvinced that she belonged in such a prestigious role. "Look, ma'am," he said bluntly, his voice lacking any hint of warmth. "I need to see credentials that say you're authorized to be here." The way he emphasized "you" made it evident he was not just concerned with the paperwork. He was questioning her very presence at this base. In his mind, a woman in combat gear didn't fit the image of what he thought a Navy SEAL should look like. Jamie felt her heart pound in her chest, frustration boiling beneath the surface. She could see the doubt etched on the Marine's face. Doubt, fueled by long-standing stereotypes about women in combat roles. In his eyes, she could sense that he saw her as an exception rather than a norm in a male-dominated environment. Perhaps he pictured all female service members as incapable or less qualified when compared to their male counterparts. "You don't understand," Jamie pressed on, fighting against the dismissal she felt from him. "I've trained for years, faced challenges that would break most people. I've earned my place here." There was conviction in her voice. She hoped to reach him despite his hardened demeanor, but the Marine remained unmoved. "I get that you've trained, but I've never seen you before," he replied curtly, dismissing her efforts with a wave of his hand. His tone suggested that unless she proved herself to him personally, her achievements meant little. It was frustrating for Jamie to witness such ignorance firsthand. The notion that even after becoming a Navy SEAL and accomplishing difficult missions, her mere appearance as a woman could diminish her accomplishments in some people's eyes. Feeling empowered yet discouraged at the same time, Jamie realized that this encounter went beyond just gaining entry to a base. It was about challenging ingrained beliefs. She had fought through rigorous training and had earned respect from her fellow SEALs, men and women who recognized her capabilities without prejudice. But overcoming the perceptions of others like this Marine would take more than just determination. It required breaking down barriers with proof. As she took a deep breath and steadied herself for another attempt to convince him, Jamie understood that this moment was not merely an obstacle. It was also an opportunity to highlight how much work still needed to be done against stereotypes in military culture. A chance to show that anyone who trained hard enough could achieve greatness, regardless of gender. The tension between Jamie and the Marine Guard grew thicker with each passing moment. He stared at her, arms still crossed over his chest, as if daring her to challenge his authority any further. Jamie could feel her pulse quickening. The frustration bubbling inside her was hard to contain. She had fought tooth and nail to be where she was, but here she stood, facing unyielding skepticism. "Look," she said, keeping her tone steady despite her rising emotions. "I'm not just any officer. I'm a Navy SEAL. I have been through more rigorous training than most will ever know. You need to let me pass." Each word dripped with conviction as she laid out her credentials, hoping to penetrate the thick wall of his resolve. The Marine continued to regard her with an unblinking stare. "And I understand that, Lieutenant," he replied coolly. "But you can't just expect me to take your word for it." His rigid adherence to protocol echoed through his words. He didn't care about her past accomplishments or sacrifices. What mattered to him were the regulations he had sworn to uphold without question. Jamie felt a mixture of anger and disappointment wash over her. The Marine's unwavering stance felt like a direct personal attack, as if he were dismissing everything she had worked for simply because of his preconceived notions of gender roles in the military. She held back the urge to scream in frustration. Instead, She took a deep breath, trying to find common ground. As a soldier, you have to know that sometimes protocols don't account for every situation, she argued, her voice tinged with urgency. It's about assessing the individual and their capabilities, not just following orders blindly. The rationale behind her plea hung in the air like a challenge hanging over them. But the Marine did not relent. He shook his head slowly, as if contemplating her words, but ultimately rejecting them just the same. It's not personal, he insisted, though his demeanor suggested otherwise. I'm following procedure. With every syllable that left his mouth, Jamie sensed how entrenched he was in his beliefs. To him, rules were black and white. There was no room for interpretation or exceptions. Frustration mounted as Jamie realized that this exchange wasn't just about a misplaced badge. It represented a broader fight against an entrenched mindset that viewed women as less capable than their male counterparts in combat roles. She wanted him to understand that she was ready for anything thrown her way, yet all he saw was a woman standing before him, not a Navy SEAL. Desperation began to creep into her voice, but she fought it back. She knew this moment could be pivotal, not only for herself but for every woman fighting against the same kind of doubt. I'm here on official business for a reason, she pleaded once again, hoping to pierce through his indifference. As they continued the exchange, her determination clashing with his firm resolve, Jamie recognized that either one of them would need to bend if there were any hope of breaking this stalemate. In the midst of the charged exchange, Jamie sensed that the moment to change the tide had arrived. Determined not to let frustration cloud her resolve, she took a deep breath and calmly reached for her SEAL badge. With steady hands, she lifted it into view, allowing it to catch the early morning light. The badge gleamed brightly, a symbol of her hard-earned accomplishments and the countless sacrifices she had made to earn her place among the elite. Here, she said, her voice firm yet composed. This is what I've worked for. This badge represents everything I've endured and achieved as a Navy SEAL. She held it steady in front of him, hoping he would finally understand the significance it held. Not just for her, but for every woman striving to break barriers in the military. The Marine Guard's eyes widened slightly as he focused on the badge. For a brief moment, his stern expression faltered. Jamie noticed a flicker of realization crossing his face. The skepticism that had once clouded his judgment began to dissipate. It was as if her SEAL badge was not just a piece of metal, but a key unlocking a door in his understanding. "Ma'am," he began, his voice less certain now. I didn't realize." The words hung in the air between them, heavy with implication. In that instant, Jamie felt a rush of hope. Perhaps this Marine could see past his initial biases and recognize her authority. "Everyone deserves respect based on their qualifications, not their appearance," she replied gently but assertively. "I've fought through rigorous training and earned my place here just like anyone else." Jamie's heart raced as she saw him processing her words. This was not just about proving herself. It was about standing up for all women who faced similar challenges in their careers. As he continued to study the badge, Jamie could almost see him reevaluating his preconceived notions. The rigid lines of his posture softened ever so slightly as he began to grasp that capability could come in many forms, regardless of gender. He looked back at her, and Jamie noticed a change in his demeanor, a newfound respect beginning to emerge as he acknowledged her identity fully. "Lieutenant Thompson," he said slowly, "I apologize for my earlier assumptions." The sincerity in his voice surprised her. Perhaps this encounter would not end in frustration after all. With that single acknowledgement hanging between them, Jamie felt a wave of relief wash over her. This moment represented more than just gaining entry into the base. It marked a step forward against stereotypes that had persisted for far too long. As she stood before him, badge in hand and resolve unwavering, she realized that sometimes it only took one conversation to change someone's perspective, and perhaps even pave the way for future generations of women striving for equality in military service. As Jamie stood before the Marine Guard, her SEAL badge held firmly in her hand, she noticed the shift in his demeanor. The moment he acknowledged her accomplishments, a flicker of surprise crossed his face, quickly replaced by a deepening respect. It was as if a veil had been lifted from his eyes, revealing a broader understanding of her journey. "Lieutenant Thompson," he said slowly, his tone softer now as he regarded her with newfound appreciation. "I truly didn't realize the extent of your background. I'm sorry for my earlier assumptions." His words were sincere, and Jamie could see that he was genuinely reflecting on the biases he had held just moments before. This acknowledgement transformed the atmosphere between them. The rigid posture he had maintained began to relax, and the lines of skepticism that had carved themselves into his face softened. Jamie felt a surge of hope. Perhaps this encounter could foster change not just for herself, but also for other women in the military facing similar prejudices. The Marine took a step closer, lowering his arms from their defensive stance. "I've seen a lot during my time here," he admitted, his voice steady. "But I suppose I've been blinded by my own beliefs about what a Navy SEAL should look like." Jamie could sense the weight of his realization. It was as if he was processing not only his attitude toward her, but also the broader implications of gender roles within the military. "Thank you for recognizing that," Jamie replied, relieved to see him opening up. "It's important for us to remember that capabilities come in many forms." She felt empowered by this exchange. It was more than just personal validation. It was an opportunity to promote understanding and equality within their ranks. The Marine nodded slowly, absorbing her words. "You've put in the work to earn that badge," he noted, glancing again at the shining emblem that represented her commitment and sacrifice. "I understand now that I have to be better at seeing beyond appearances." Jamie smiled, encouraged by his willingness to reflect on his biases. "We all have room to grow," she said gently. "It starts with conversations like this one." There was a newfound camaraderie forming between them, a shared understanding that transcended their initial conflict. "Please forgive me for any disrespect I may have shown," he continued, sincerity evident in his gaze. "You have my full respect now, Lieutenant." With those words, a barrier fell away, leaving room for possibility and change. Jamie felt lighter. This small victory was meaningful not only for her, but for every woman who had ever felt underestimated in uniform. As they stood there together, she realized how vital it was to challenge perceptions head-on, not just for herself, but to pave the way for future generations of women in the military. This moment symbolized progress, a reminder that respect is earned through understanding and recognition of one's true capabilities. The encounter between Jamie and the Marine Guard serves as a powerful illustration of the deep-rooted gender stereotypes present within military culture. From the moment Jamie approached the entrance, she faced not just skepticism about her identity, but also an implicit bias that many women in the armed forces encounter regularly. The guard's initial refusal to let her pass was not merely an issue of protocol. It embodied a larger societal perception that women, particularly in combat roles like that of a Navy SEAL, are somehow less capable or deserving of respect. As Jamie presented her badge, she confronted the very foundation of these biases. Her experience became a microcosm of the struggles faced by countless female service members, each one fighting against an outdated notion that their worth could be judged based on gender rather than skills or qualifications. By standing firm in her resolve, Jamie challenged the Marine to reconsider what it truly meant to be a soldier and what capabilities one must demonstrate to earn respect. This moment highlights the cultural challenges that persist within the military environment, where traditional beliefs about masculinity and strength often overshadow the contributions of women. The Marines' initial indifference reflected the general mindset that has long held women back, where successes are questioned simply because of the stereotypical image of a soldier that excludes them. When the Guard ultimately recognized Jamie's accomplishments, it represented more than just acceptance. It served as a step toward breaking down these entrenched beliefs. Throughout military history, women have fought to prove themselves in various capacities, often going above and beyond to earn their place. And yet, moments like this still occur, indicating that there is much work left to do in reshaping perceptions. When Jamie's badge finally broke through the Guard's skepticism, it marked a significant triumph, not only for her, but for all women aiming to shift the narrative surrounding female capability in combat roles. These exchanges are essential for fostering change and greater understanding, underscoring how critical it is for service members to engage in conversations about gender equity. As both characters evolved through their interaction, they opened the door for future dialogue and a deeper appreciation of each other's roles within the military. Ultimately, Jamie's encounter with the Marine acted as a reminder that confronting stereotypes requires courage and resilience. Through her unwavering determination and ability to assert her worth, she paved the way for other women navigating similar battles. Every dialogue that challenges preconceived notions contributes to an evolving military culture that values skill over gender, ensuring that respect is granted based on capability rather than appearance. This shift has the potential to reshape the future for generations of women in the military, fostering an environment where all soldiers can thrive regardless of gender. In the aftermath of their encounter, both Jamie and the Marine Guard found themselves transformed by the exchange. For Jamie, the moment marked a significant milestone in her career. The respect that had been granted to her not only validated her efforts, but also reinforced her commitment to serving as a role model for other women in the military. She left the base that day feeling empowered and energized, knowing that she had made an impact not only on herself, but also on the perceptions of others who might face similar challenges. As she walked away, Jamie reflected on how this experience underscored the importance of resilience in overcoming stereotypes. Her determination to assert her identity had sparked a change in perspective for the Marine Guard, and she realized how powerful it could be to confront biases directly. It was a reminder that every interaction could be an opportunity for progress, not just for herself, but for all women striving to break through barriers in a traditionally male-dominated environment. Meanwhile, the Marine Guard found himself grappling with the realization of his earlier assumptions. The moment Jamie had presented her badge was pivotal. It forced him to confront his own biases about what it meant to serve as a soldier. He began to understand that capability is not defined by gender, but by dedication, skill, and hard work. This newfound respect not only changed how he viewed Jamie, but also influenced how he would interact with other female service members in the future. Feeling a sense of responsibility, he reflected on what it meant to be a gatekeeper at the entrance of a military base. He recognized that his role went beyond enforcing rules. It included fostering an environment where all service members felt valued and respected. The encounter with Jamie nudged him toward greater awareness and understanding, prompting him to engage in more conversations around gender equity within military culture. In the days that followed, both individuals carried this experience with them as a source of inspiration. Jamie continued her work with renewed vigor, eager to take on new challenges and inspire others who faced doubt because of their gender. The Marine Guard, on his part, became more vigilant in recognizing implicit biases among his peers and worked toward creating a more inclusive atmosphere at the base. Their exchange became a small yet significant ripple in the larger context of military culture, one that encouraged dialogue about respect and recognition for all service members. Both Jamie and the Marine learned that breaking down stereotypes requires courage and vulnerability, and they continued to embody these lessons in their professional lives. Ultimately, this encounter served as a reminder that changing perceptions can begin with one courageous conversation. As they navigated their respective journeys, both Jamie and the Marine were committed to fostering understanding, respect, and equality, values essential for shaping a better future within military service for everyone involved. The story of Lieutenant Jamie Thompson and her encounter with the Marine Guard serves as a poignant reflection of the broader themes of equality, respect, and the ongoing struggle to break barriers in traditionally male-dominated fields, particularly within the military. Jamie's experience encapsulates the challenges women face when striving for recognition and validation in environments that have historically been resistant to change. Through her determination to assert her identity as a Navy SEAL, Jamie exemplifies the courage needed to confront ingrained stereotypes head-on. The pivotal moment when she presented her badge not only shifted the perception of the Marine Guard, but also highlighted the critical importance of acknowledging one's accomplishments, regardless of gender. This simple yet powerful act became a catalyst for dialogue about respect and capability in a context that often overlooks women's contributions. The transformation witnessed in both characters emphasizes how personal encounters can spark broader societal changes. The Marines' shift from skepticism to respect illustrates that understanding and acceptance often begin with open conversations. It underscores the idea that confronting biases, whether they are societal or self-imposed, can lead to greater awareness and inclusivity. This exchange is significant not just for Jamie and the Marine. It reverberates through military culture, advocating for an environment where all service members, regardless of gender, can thrive based on their skills and dedication. Moreover, this narrative highlights the necessity for continued dialogue around gender equity within all sectors, especially those like the military, where traditional views are deeply entrenched. By addressing these issues publicly and courageously, individuals can contribute to dismantling outdated perceptions that limit opportunities for women. Every conversation about respect fosters an environment conducive to understanding differences and appreciating diverse experiences. Ultimately, Jamie's story is a testament to resilience in the face of adversity. Her journey reflects not just her personal growth, but also signals hope for future generations who will enter similarly challenging environments. It serves as a reminder that breaking barriers requires collective effort, a commitment to engage thoughtfully with one another while championing equality across all fields. As society continues its progression toward inclusivity, stories like Jamie's become vital narratives that inspire change. They remind us that respect must be earned through actions, understanding, and recognition of one's true capabilities, rather than being dictated by outdated notions tied to gender or appearance. In fostering such an inclusive atmosphere, both within military ranks and beyond, we lay down a foundation for future leaders who will continue fighting against stereotypes, ensuring that talent and determination define success for all individuals alike.